lots of people think that cannabis is just for smoking, but when they hear this song, they'll learn there's more to toking. 25,000 different things we can make from it, and if we give it a chance, we'll save the blinking planet. Food, fuel and medicine, necessities for life, a benefit to all of us, I wonder and delight. Within this smelly weed, there's more than meets the eye, so much, much more than smoking, it can cleanse our dirty skies. Cannabis will save the planet we can.
Good evening, this is Steve on Hemp Works Radio, coming to you from Time for Hemp, international, global, brilliant radio, part of the iHeartRadio network. And tonight, my guest is Dr. Bob Melamede. Right, now, anybody who's not familiar with this guy and doesn't know about this guy, well, you should be. It's as simple as that. This guy's an heavyweight. He's going to tell you who he was, but this guy, what he's done for the cannabis movement in the scientific field. I don't know so much about his activism, but there's certainly, I've been watching his work, trying to study his work, watching his videos. I'm so lucky to get him on air tonight. I know that the European people don't most probably know Bob as well as they know him in America, but this guy is like our Muhammad Ali. He's our heavyweight. He stings like a butterfly and floats like a bee. Good evening, Dr. Bob. Thank you for coming on air with us.
Well, good evening, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on the air. I love being in
Oh,
the
you're welcome, man. You should have your own 24/7 show. I'm sure it'd be brilliant. Now, listen, Dr. Bob, obviously your history in this goes back to when you was a university professor, when you was teaching people. You're the man that, as far as I know, I come across first that mentioned this thing called endocannabinoid system. And here we are, 2016, and it looks like people are really starting to pick up on some of the brilliant work that you researchers and doctors have put together. Man, it's so nice to have you. How are you, Dr. Bob?
I'm very good, and I've been using more and more THC as well as CBD products recently because of my decrepitness, my old age, and various illnesses that I have. And I've been blown away by how effective this stuff is. I've always loved it, but I've had certain things that have been deteriorating with age. I'm 68 now, and I've got gout and arthritis and all sorts of nasty stuff. And it got pretty...
Can I stop you there, Bob?
Yeah.
The doctor was taking his own medicine. I'm a patient that's been taking this medicine for about 4 years, and all I can say is it's remarkable. My hair's growing back, my arthritis is gone, my liver that was totally cirrhosis has fixed itself. I run up hills now, and all I can say, Dr. Bob, is take your own medicine, mate, because it really does work.
There is no question. I've been using cannabis for 52 years.
The better it is.
So, there's not a whole lot of people who've consumed more than I have.
Yeah. But is that through, what when you say you've been using it a lot, what can you tell the people, before we go into the real science of it, you as a person, how have you been taking it? What do you think is the most best, is there a most beneficial way of taking it? Or is each individual person very different in the way we can apply them?
Well, that's the whole thing about cannabis.
Lots of questions, Bob. Thank you.
What cannabis really is doing from an evolutionary point of view is it facilitates adaptation. So, we all have to adapt to whatever the changes are that are occurring in our body with time. And we have to discover how to best use cannabis for our own selves, because everybody is different. We can see that in a few examples. You can have twins where one is gay and one isn't. Well, here you have a behavior that is, clearly not simply regulated by the genetics that are largely identical between two twins. So, there are fundamental things that happen in our biochemistry that no matter how identical you try to make something, it's never that way. The very nature of life is unique and individual. We are all really evolutionary probes in chemical adaptability. We are chemical systems, both as individuals and as a population and as a component of the biosphere. think back to the Gaia hypothesis from Sheldrake back in the 70s. You know, the Earth is one big organism. And in a sense, that's absolutely true. Because, you know, we are what's called a dissipative structure. And from a scientific point, what that means is that we burn energy to create organization, to maintain our organization. You know, if you wrapped a person up in a baggie, they would suffocate, die, rot, and eventually all of that chemistry would be like a discharged battery. It would no longer be able to do anything. So what we want to do in life via our adaptability is to maintain ourselves in a charged state. We want to be charged with the energy of life. And cannabis miraculously happens to have this incredibly unique and powerful position in the biosphere, not just in mankind, but really in the biosphere and in the evolutionary process. You know, the chemistry that constitutes our endocannabinoid system, the kind of the raw basic chemistry of it, is found as far back as protozoa, which are the single-celled organisms, which were the first modern cell type. We call them eukaryotes. The first eukaryotes were the protists, you know, the amoeba and the paramecium and little one-celled organisms like you find in pond water. Oh. And they have endocannabinoid chemicals in them. But what they don't have are endocannabinoid receptors. So you had your...
Excuse me, Skype needs your attention.
I'm on Skype. How does Skype need my attention? So anyway...
Slight interference from above there.
I don't know what that was about.
No idea. It's a strange night tonight. That's all I can say.
That was weird. Go ahead.
That was double weird. Hey, I think what it is, guys, let's stop it there for 1 second and say good evening to all the people at the NSA. Obviously, they're tuning in tonight, Bob, because you've got great information. And we know that the NSA and all them other departments like DEA and FBI and my lot, MI6, we know they tune into the show because it's so important for them to get educated too. And also, I'd like to point out as well, you see, Dr. Bob here, right, can you tell, you see, you're qualified to say this, aren't you, Bob? It's all right, me and people like Casper running around talking like you do, but you see, we haven't mentioned who you are because the European people don't know you. So can you give us your full title, please, Dr. Bob? Who are you?
Actually, I've done a number of talks in Europe. I've done talks with Rick Simpson, and I've been in Croatia and Slovenia and Germany, and you know, I've done the round.
You've been about, yeah.
So what? You know, I'm a.
But Dr. Bob, you come from Stanford, don't you? You are a doctor or a professor. You do have. I
am a PhD, basically trained in biochemistry and molecular genetics, is what I technically have a degree in. But what my
that's your qualifications to talk like the way that you talk. So you're not just a common man. You are a man that's dedicated his intelligence and his life to understanding how these things work. Is that correct?
Well, that is the common man. We're all trying to learn and understand and be healthy. You know, I just have been fortunate that I've got some good insights that are
absolutely all right. Then fine, whichever way you look at it. But you're a professional. Yeah.
I was retired as chairman of the biology department at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, and I'm also a founder of Cannabis Science, and I'm involved in many, many cannabis-related industry projects around the world with wonderful things going on, especially in Jamaica right now.
So, I was in Jamaica earlier. That's quite fun, isn't it? What's going on over there?
Yeah,
I think they're heading back there quite soon.
Yeah, they legalized, and my friends over there are the Ethiopian Zion Coptic Church, and they've got special recognition in Jamaica because they've been fighting the good fight for many, many, many decades, and many of their church members are or have been in jail for way too long. So it's, you know, the government has now come to recognize that these are decent, good people who, you know, have been simply practicing their religion, and their religion basically says that cannabis is the sacrament. And from a scientific point of view, They are exactly correct.
And for me, when I lived with them at the beginning of last year, January, February, March and April, I lived up in the hills with some of the best biodynamic farmers I've ever seen on the planet. Besides them just being Rasta and growing herb, how they were growing the herb within the biodynamics of the natural sphere there was absolutely staggering. Yeah? They are true farmers, some of these boys, really basic, true, organic farmers. And one of the crops that they grow very well is called cannabis.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. And it is a lovely place, isn't it, Bob? So anyway, right, so where have you got to in this? Where are we at now with this endocannabinoid system?
All right.
Because it's very important to us, isn't it?
It's extremely important. So what happened is, evolution kept making life more complicated. You went from single cells to multi-cells. You went from a cell that did everything to cells that were specialized. And we had nerves and a nervous system and immune cells and an immune system, etc., develop in invertebrates, okay? Now, invertebrates are very hardwired. Life naturally embraces variability and adaptability, but relative to, say, modern man, invertebrates are very hardwired. Bees, insects, lobsters, they don't make iPads. They have very limited complexity, and their societies are hardwired. And then with the evolution of the vertebrates, now for the first time, you had something very special happen. You had the endocannabinoid receptors first appear in the nervous system, the CB1 receptor, the receptor that gets people high.
Right. And they come first.
That came first. There was no CB2 receptor. It was only CB1. Okay?
Ah. Yeah.
But now let's step back a second and let's look at what really is going on with life. Okay? And then we'll understand that the cannabinoid system is truly magical. It's got a central role that is so unique and so powerful and so magical that the plant is able to heal all sorts of different illnesses and, in fact, is an anti-aging drug. So that gives us some pretty important hints that we're dealing with something very special here.
Especially when we're not getting any younger, eh, Dr. Bob? It's a good time to find out about this at our age of life.
Well, exactly. Well, that's why I'm thankful, very, very thankful that I've used cannabis since I was 16 years old, because knowing my genetic predisposition to certain illnesses like arthritis and pain, my use of cannabis has kept that at bay, although it's been progressing and sneaking up on me. Recently, I took strong action to inhibit the problems that we're developing. And thankfully, by applying the science that I'll describe now, I've been able to help myself make tremendous, resurrection of my body. And other people, we've been able to, cure cancers and cure HIV, etc. And it's all consistent with the story that I'm going to tell you. So if people will be patient and listen to the story, I will try my very best to make it as simple as possible, because it really, really is very simple. It's complicated, but it's simple at the same time. Once you understand that all we're ever looking at is the ability of life to adapt so it can continue to be alive. That's life. Yeah, that's the driving force of all cells and all organisms, and including cancers and other illnesses. They have found their way of surviving, which unfortunately is not very holistic in terms of them cooperating with the rest of the cells of the body when you're dealing with cancer. All right, so. Now, I want to go back to the work of Dr. Ilya Prigogine, who got the Nobel Prize in 1972 for discovering and creating a whole new field of physics called far from equilibrium thermodynamics. Thermo-energy dynamics flow. So we're talking about flowing energy. Well, that's what life is. You eat and you shit, okay? And if you don't do both, you don't live. You know, you drink and you piss. If you don't do both, you don't live. You breathe in oxygen, you breathe out CO2. If you don't do both, you don't live. Okay, so we are flow-dependent structures. We extract energy from the foods and from our environment, and we use that to maintain the organization of our biochemistry. And as long as we can keep ourselves charged with life, then we're healthy. But as we discharge the life's energy, that's what aging is. And death is basically, it's like a phase change. It's kind of like life melting in that we went from an organized structure to a disorganized structure. Meaning living things are organized and dead things are rotting, and they're no longer maintaining that same level of organization. All right? So now it turns out that what Prigogine determined was that flowing energy organizes matter. So what we want to do is we want to be able to see how that organized matter turns into life, and how by energy flowing through life, it mandates really the evolutionary process. And what humans are is the high point of adaptability. You know, look, we can go to the moon. We have stores. We don't have to swim around in the sewer to find our food. You know, stores. We make clothing and houses. We have heating. What we do is we control our environment, and we bring that control with us. We're like in our little spacesuit, so to speak. You know, and that's because we have learned how to manipulate our environment to make it hospitable to us. Other than us only adapting genetically and biochemically, we've adapted our environment to us, which is quite remarkable when you think
good. As long as well, obviously, looking at the environment that we've got today, I don't think we've done a particularly good job of it, but that's a different point.
Well, but see, we had to reach the point where we get smart enough to know that.
So smart enough to know it, exactly.
See, so in the United States, back in the 60s, the age of enlightenment, you know, we recognized that we couldn't just keep crapping in our oceans and in our streams and dumping our poisonous chemicals in, and, you know, that there were consequences that were going to affect us. So if in
2015.
Exactly. So, you know, woke up, we started the enlightenment process. And think of who did that. The damn hippies. You know, everybody's eating LSD and smoking marijuana, and it broke down the constipated mentality that had dominated mankind in the past, especially during the 50s, you know. So we came into the 60s, a time of revolution of thinking, and that's when Prigogine manifests his understanding that flowing energy organizes matter. We started with the Big Bang, and that energy has been organizing matter ever since. And once life formed, what we have is a continued increase in complexity that allows us to continuously adapt to our environment, or to make our environment adapt so we don't need to change ourselves, because we can change our environment, okay?
Change is change.
So with the development of vertebrates, we had this CB1 receptor emerge. And what we mean by emerging phenomenon is something's nonlinear. It wasn't there beforehand, and then it was there. It wasn't halfway there or a quarter there. It was not there, and it was there. All right? That's nonlinear. And it turns out that what the CB1 receptor does is very special. It allows for living cells to efficiently make energy.
Wow.
In a higher level than would occur if it was not there. Now, let me explain what that means.
Yeah.
There are different ways that we can burn our fuel, because think of our food. It's different kinds of fuels. We have sugars, we have proteins, we have fats, and we have carbohydrates, as well as, of course, trace elements and vitamins, okay?
And oils.
But in terms of burning mass, those are the things that we burn to make ATP, which is the common currency of fuel in living systems, okay? Mm-hmm. So we can make ATP by burning fat, by burning carbohydrates, by burning proteins. They are not all the same. There are different consequences that occur when you are burning them in the different modes. The most efficient way of burning fuel is via what's called the Krebs cycle and the electron transport system. And for every molecule of glucose that you burn, you can, in theory, make 36 molecules of ATP.
Wow.
Energy
That's
source.
a great range, yeah?
All
Imagine
right?
doing that with dollars.
But the problem is, there's a big problem that occurs. When you make energy efficiently, you also make free radicals.
Right.
Free radicals are chemicals that will react with anything. They're very, very reactive. So they will react with your DNA and your RNA and your protein and the fats that make you up. And when they react with them, then those chemicals no longer behave exactly the same as when they haven't been modified by the free radicals. Okay? So view free radicals as the friction of life. It deteriorates the functionality of life. Okay? And just like rust is oxidized iron, these free radicals oxidize our biochemicals. Okay? All right, so we don't want to make too many of those free radicals because they're damaging us. On the other hand, we need to make them because as we are constantly adapting, and by that I mean every instant of your life, your biochemistry is constantly adapting to the changing environment because nothing ever really remains the same unless there is nothing at all, meaning a system is at equilibrium. It can't do anything anymore. As long as we're far from equilibrium and things can happen, things will happen. And we have to continuously adjust to that. All right? So, think about this now. What kept happening with the CB1 receptor, and what it does is it regulates a bunch of ion channels, which in turn regulate how efficiently we make ATP and how much free radicals we produce. Okay?
Bob, can you just explain what the ETP is, please?
ATP is a chemical that has a lot of energy in it. You know, look, if you take a match and you put it by water, nothing happens. You take a match and you put it by gunpowder, it explodes. Right? So there's energy in certain chemicals. There's energy in the gunpowder. Most of the energy has been lost in the water.
Right.
Okay? And the water was formed by taking your food and combining it with oxygen and burning it. And we made CO2 and we made water. And think about it, both of those things, CO2 and water, what's a common use that both of those have? They're fire extinguishers.
Absolutely.
Fire extinguishers, because they cannot burn, because they've already lost their chemical energy.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Thank you. That's lovely. Got that.
All right. So now we have free radicals that are, on the one hand, a damage, but on the other hand, they have two other uses. Our immune system actually makes them, and we use them as little weapons. Because radiation makes free radicals. So basically, your immune cells nuke the they nuke the pathogens that are trying to kill you. They nuke the viruses, they nuke the fungi, they nuke the bacteria, and ideally, they also nuke cancer cells. Okay? So when everything's working perfectly, you know, you're in a state of flowing harmony. You're making free radicals because the free radicals are telling the system how to adjust to the changes that are constantly happening. But now, your brain, as it keeps getting more and more complicated, it winds up producing more and more heat. So the brain has to make energy efficiently, which means it has to burn carbohydrates via the electron transport system, which means it's also susceptible to the free radicals that are produced. All right?
Okay.
Yeah,
got that. We're good on that.
Let's look for a second at why is a free radical potentially dangerous, okay? So a free radical, we said, can react with DNA, RNA, or proteins. Well, if it reacts with your DNA, and let's suppose it hits a base in your DNA, which codes for a gene that tells the cell when to divide or not divide. Now, if your free radical changes that base so that the information in the DNA is no longer properly expressed, what it can do is it can turn a cell into a cancer cell. So this is what's so unbelievably amazing. A single molecule, a single free radical molecule that you normally will naturally make as part of being alive can hit a critical base in a critical gene in your DNA and turn that cell into a cancer cell, which will now continuously divide. And if your immune system can't suppress that, and if other things that you try to do can't suppress it, then you will die. So think of what I just said. One molecule can kill you. You are made up of a gazillion molecules, all right? And you're made up of trillions and trillions and trillions of cells. And damaging one base in one cell can kill you. All right? Now it gets even crazier because every one of those trillion cells that you have every day gets 10,000 of these free radical damages.
Wow, it's being hit constantly.
Yes. And yet we're still alive. And
that's a miracle.
Yeah, it's very cool, isn't it?
Miracle. It's just a miracle. Sorry, it's the only word I can think of.
So what your CB1 receptor is doing, and most scientists will not look at it the way I'm telling you this, but this is absolutely real. It's just that these people have their heads up their butts, and they don't, they don't inquire. They don't have inquiring minds. No. Anyway, but that's a whole other issue that we can get into depending on our timing here, okay? Okay?
Let's go.
So here we want to deal with these cancer cells, and we want to prevent free radical damage, and we have a brain that is making free radicals all the time because it has to make energy efficiently. Now, why is that? Let's look. Everything's simple when you understand it, okay? Your brain is 5% of your body weight, but your brain uses 20% of your energy.
Wow, it's greedy, huh?
Yes, and it has to use it. It has to make it very efficiently because free radicals, one of the things that they do is they cause cells to die. Right. When they make too many free radicals, they create a process known as apoptosis, which is a method by which cells can die. There's a couple of different methods, okay? But cells making too many free radicals will die. Your nervous system needs to make free radicals because it has to make energy efficiently. What your cannabinoid receptor does is it fine-tunes the energy production of your nervous system so that it doesn't kill itself, so that it can efficiently make energy and supply the brain in a way that will not make too much heat so that the brain won't kill itself. All right? Now, because brain is making all of these free radicals or has the potential to make them, whenever there's a perturbation in the flow, then free radicals tend to be made, okay? And there's many different things that can perturb the flow. Mutations, poison chemicals, all sorts of shit, okay? So, now we've got flowing energy, flowing efficiently, and the brain is ideally able to use that. But now if you get some injury in the brain is going to make a lot of free radicals because it was already in that free radical mode. And those free radicals are going to cause apoptosis, and that's why your brain and your head is so sensitive to injury.
That's why it's so well protected, huh?
Exactly. But now look at the other organs that are very equally as important, but they're not as complex biochemically. Look at your heart. All right? Okay. Your heart generates most of its energy by burning fat, not by burning carbohydrates.
That's correct.
So it makes energy much less efficiently, but it doesn't.
Is the fat that the heart uses mainly the omega-3 fat?
We'll get into that.
Fine. Thank you. Sorry. Okay.
That depends on your diet, and it depends on your cannabis use and other things that you consume. Okay.
Yeah.
So, ideally, your heart is burning fats largely, and it's not making too many free radicals. It just keeps pumping along. You know, the complexity of your heart compared to your brain is bullshit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you had to wire your brain versus create your heart, one's a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, the heart really it's just a big pump, isn't it? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
it's got its.
I mean, it's incredibly sophisticated, but it requires, it's not as organized.
Yeah.
It's not as far from equilibrium as your brain is.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So now we have energy being efficiently made thanks to the CB1 receptor. We can create a brain. Well, what does that brain do? Well, it remembers things and it forgets things. And you don't want to remember everything because then you remember all the bad things in life and you have PTSD. So you want to forget. And your cannabinoid system regulates that forgetting. And your cannabinoid system regulates your brain activity in such a way as to minimize harm to it that would otherwise be caused by the free radicals that are produced every time you are doing anything, because then you're activating the brain. And anytime anything in the body is activated, it's activated via calcium. Calcium has this incredibly important role, probably having to do with the very formation of life in the oceans where there was a lot of calcium. You know, the cliffs of Dover was when this calcium was pulled out to make the cliffs. And we have lots of calcium in the water, and it's always going back and forth, as a function of acidity, etc. Anyway, calcium regulates for example, your insulin production. It regulates your nervous transmission. It regulates your muscle contraction. So no matter where you look, calcium activates. Calcium. All right? It activates your immune system. It activates your antibody production. It activates your T-cell receptors. Everything that's activated works with calcium, which means it's going to increase free radical production, which means everything has to be harmoniously regulated. All right.
And of course, we're made out of calcium, aren't we? Our bones are calcium. We are a calcium body, aren't we? That's what the bones and things are made from, aren't they?
But the key here to remember is everything I'm talking about has to do with flow. And even though you don't see it, your bones are also flowing. And every 10 years, your skeletal system basically replaces itself over a 10-year period.
As quick as that, huh?
Yeah. So what we have to do is always regulate the balance between synthesis and degradation. Now, when you're a child, we grow in two different ways. We grow intellectually, which is essentially what we would call negative entropy, organization. All right? Yep. But we also grow physically. You get bigger bones, bigger muscles, bigger brain, the whole body grows. Yep. So there are two ways that we move further from equilibrium. But now we reach adulthood, and what happens? We start to age. We're no longer growing. We are now aging. We are
going backwards.
returning to equilibrium. All right? Right. And what we have to do in order to maintain health is to maintain our distance from equilibrium. And it turns out, and this is part of the validity of what I'm saying, everything that you look at in humanity that is good for us moves us further from equilibrium. Everything that's bad moves us closer to equilibrium. So exercise and eat good food, and you organize your biochemistry. Eat crap, don't exercise, and you degrade yourself at a more rapid rate. Wow. So the challenge becomes, as an adult, how do we maintain our distance from equilibrium and minimize our descent towards equilibrium and towards the far from equilibrium phase change that we call death, the melting life. All right? So as things kept getting more complicated and as this brain did all of its wonderful things, we gained mobility. Look at the difference between a vertebrate and an invertebrate. An invertebrate has an exoskeleton, so it can't grow beyond its skeleton. Whereas with humans, we have skin that is elastic. We have bones that grow as a function of demand. You know, if you exercise more, they'll be stronger. You exercise more, your muscles will develop. We increase the organization of our life and move ourselves further from equilibrium. That is what health is. The lack of health is the movement towards equilibrium. All right, now, the CB2 receptor comes to play millions of years later after the CB1 receptor. And it was originally called the peripheral receptor or the immune receptor. Well, it turns out that it was now known that whenever you have pathology anywhere in the body, the CB2 receptor gets upregulated. There's a very simple way of understanding what's going on. It's very, very simple, but 99.9% of our scientists don't know and understand this. And I started to write a book, but after I got up to 800 references, my brain scrambled. So it's not like I'm pulling this stuff out of my butt, This is very, very thoroughly researched, and I can show you and prove everything that I say. Okay? Yeah. So it turns out that what the CB2 receptor does is it turns on fat burning.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. And the central coordinator for everything in life is redox, the free radical production. That's what coordinates everything. If you're making too many, then they got to turn back. And there's different ways that the metabolism regulates how many free radicals or how much is being produced. And it determines that by how much damage is being made. Because we have systems that monitor the damage, and they say, oh, you're making too many free radicals, you better cut off the electron transport system. And
so it's a self-regulating system.
Everything's self-regulating. That's the difference.
As long as you put in the right fuel in and looking after yourself, it's a self-regulating system that is really going to try and keep living rather than... Got ya.
Okay, it's all flow dependent. So... It turns out that, look at the beauty of what has happened here. We have the CB1 receptor regulating calcium channels and regulating free radical production when cells are making energy efficiently, like they must do in the brain, like they must do when you're sprinting in a run, a quick energy run, all right? There are different times when you're spitting out insulin, okay? Yeah. But now, if too many free radicals are made, the cells have to try other alternatives. One of the things they do is they make antioxidant. They make glutathione. They make things that quench free radicals. But the more important thing is to prevent them from being made by regulating the metabolic pathways that generate.
Prevention better than cure.
So you turn on fat burning. Okay? So here we have cannabis protecting us when we are differentiated and making energy efficiently like in our neurons. And we have the CB2 receptor protecting us when the cells are making too many free radicals and they're going to kill themselves. This is the last resort. We'll turn on fat burning. Okay? All right. Now, when cells first become cancerous, they typically do so by burning sugars and making too many mutations and screwing up their ability to self-regulate.
Okay, then we got it. So,
respond to the environment of the other cells in the body that ideally are all working together to maintain you in a state of optimal health. But because of your genetics or because you're smoking cigarettes or you're eating crap, you're killing yourself, and your body can only help you out to so much. You got to help your body help.
All
right?
A bit of self-help.
Right. Okay, so now let's look at some of the implications of all of what I've just described.
Okay.
All right. You want to prevent Alzheimer's? Well, you use your CB1 receptor, turn on cannabis, prevent Alzheimer's because you reduce the free radical production that's killing the nerve cells. Additionally, this is quite magical, again, like everything with cannabis. It turns out that the CB1 receptor regulates what's called neurogenesis, the production of new nerve cells, even in adults. It used to be thought that you're born with a certain amount of nerves and they're going to just keep dying until you get senile and old and die. Well, now we know that we're making new nerve cells all the time out of stem cells. Well, guess what stem cells are doing? They're burning.
What are stem cells doing?
Stem cells are burning fat normally. That's why they don't
Wow.
age. You see, because they're burning fat, they're not making free radicals to the same extent. So they hang out and they can divide and make more stem cells, or when there's a need, they will divide what's called asymmetrically. One cell will remain a stem cell, and the other cell will differentiate and become a nerve or an immune cell or a bone or whatever. So we repopulate ourselves, we fix ourselves through our stem cells, and we maintain our stem cells via the CB2 receptor and fat burning. And when the stem cells are going to turn into something, now they have to make energy efficiently again. Therefore, what do they need? The CB1 receptor.
Oh, magic.
See, it's all very simple. And yet, 99% of the scientists are not going to even listen to this story, even though
Coming from a scientist that can prove it.
they are the ones who made them. No, they've already proven it. Look, I've got hundreds and hundreds of references that prove everything I say. All I've done is taken the work of others
and put it all together
in the context of the brilliance provided by Ilya Prigoghine's work on far from equilibrium thermodynamics. All I've done is integrate biology with modern physics. and
of course incorporated the cannabis plant into those two, because that's the most
that's what God did. Whatever God you want, I don't give a crap. You know, Jesus, Moses, Mohammed, or any of the Hindu gods. I don't care. This is how we work.
This is the glue, man. This is the real stuff.
This is
in the physical world. This is how it works.
See, for me, God means the physics. For me, the creative nature of the universe is God. Generalized open system dynamics, GOD. Okay.
For other people, for me.
Other people need to put it in a religious context, meaning Jesus or etc. I don't need to do that. For me, my religion is science. I can prove my religion. I don't have to have faith in my religion, other than I have faith that science is meaningful.
Yeah.
All right? So now let's look at some examples of how this knowledge pertains to other things. Okay? So like I said, most cancer cells start out as sugar burners.
Okay.
All right? And what happens?
So obviously when we got these cancer things, all this news about stopping to take sugar, that is a really good thing to do, isn't it? If you've got cancer and don't feel well,
you'll understand more when I go further.
Thank you.
Sugar is more important for preventing cancer, not for treating cancer. Okay?
Okay.
And you'll see why as we go on.
Okay.
So, and it can be useful for treating cancer, but it's a double-edged sword. We have to look at what happens here. Okay?
Okay.
So all of these different ways that cells keep themselves alive, meaning they turn on antioxidants, they turn on glutathione, for example, or they turn on a protein called an uncoupling protein, UCP2. And what that does is it wastes some of the energy from the electron transport system, so it doesn't make as many free radicals. And so that's another alternative way the cell can adjust itself if it's making free radicals. Another thing a cell can do if it's making too many free radicals is it can divide. Dividing uses the energy rather than making it into free radicals. There's a balance because all of these things are happening simultaneously. You're making, you're breaking, you're using, you're repairing. Everything is simultaneously happening. And what we want to do is shift things in such a fashion that we minimize our degradation, that we repair things, that we replace things, and that we do that sufficiently to keep us from aging more rapidly and dying. All right? Well, we know that if you make a knockout mouse, meaning you eliminate the gene, and you do that for the CB1 receptor, the receptor that gets you high. Mice that have no CB1 receptor, by the time they're 26 weeks old, 70% of them are alive, 30% of them have died. Whereas the normal mice that can get high, none of them have died. So either get high or die. Because
that's a fair comment, isn't it? Tate's choice.
It's true. Get high or die, because your CB1 receptor is regulating free radical production everywhere in your body, not just your brain. And your cells.
So how have we? Sorry to bother. I mean, you really are on a roll, but how have we managed to survive these last dry years, the last 20, 30 years, without using this plant? I mean, if it's so important.
I've used it since I was 16. Come on, I use it every day. I've always used it.
Yeah, but you're quite. Yeah, that's fine. But not everybody in the world has, Bob. Now.
No, that's true.
Probably more,
they don't know enough.
There's probably more that haven't than have.
The more people understand what I'm saying, the more people are going to use cannabis.
Because it just sounds to me, the more I listen to people like you, and the more I know about it, it's an essential part of our food group.
You got it. That's exactly where I was going. It's an essential nutrient for modern man, because if you take more of it, you live longer and healthier, and if you have less of it, you die younger and you have more age-related illnesses. So to me, that's an essential nutrient, and the government has no business telling me I can't eat something that's going to be good for me. They have no business.
Exactly.
And I will never stop this fight.
Bob, your science is fantastic, and I know that what people, but as the sort of, again, the common man, I know from taking this plant in all its aspects, raw, smoking it, RSO, I've taken it all, I've shoved it up my bum, up my nose, in my ears, every possible way that I can take it for the last 4 years. And 4 years ago, a doctor told me I'll be dead in 48 hours. And here I am, 4 and a bit years later. My arm's fixed itself. My cancer's gone away. My liver's regenerated. My hair's growing back. I look younger. I feel younger. I run up the hills. And it's food, man. And the more I eat this food, the better I feel.
Yep. Well, that's why it was in the Bible as the holy anointing oil.
Yeah, man. It's just food to me. And the more I eat it, the better I get.
But see, now let's go back to this issue again, okay?
Okay, let's go there.
150 years ago, 100 years ago, people died a lot younger than they did today.
They did, didn't they?
People were living 40 years and dying, okay?
In fact, in England, that was quite old 40 years. Yeah, 100 years ago. If you lived into 40, that was quite an old man, yeah.
And people were dying largely from infections. They didn't have year-round food. They didn't have sewers. They didn't have antibiotics. They didn't have what we have today. The luxuries that we have in this, in our Western world today, they didn't have. So they died young, but they died from infections. Yeah. And what the evolution has selected for in order for us to fight infections is what's called our adaptive immune response, where we literally make new genes during our lifetime so that we can make antibodies to fight the illnesses that are unique to us depending on where we live or where we go. Okay?
Right.
See? So this is very, very special. The system, rather than making, we only have 25,000 genes, a human being. A bacteria has 2,500. They're only tenfold difference. So the very first life forms have only tenfold less DNA that we do. What does that tell you? It tells you it's not the quantity of DNA, but the organization of the DNA. It's not just how many genes you have, but how those genes and their expression is regulated. Okay?
Okay.
Right. So it turns out that cannabis via the CB2 receptor has very profound gene regulatory abilities. And what it does is it turns off the genes that are involved in sugar burning and the electron transport system, and it turns on those fat burning genes. So what you see with people who are using cannabis, this is epidemiology now. You find that the population of cannabis users has lower levels of diabetes, and they have smaller waists. Well, this goes contrary to what the narrow-minded prohibitionists think. Why should, marijuana makes you eat. Why should you be thinner? Well, the reason you're thinner is because it turns on fat burning. to protect you from your gluttony. But if you don't listen to your body and you don't know the science, then you'll be overweight. And when you're overweight, the reason you're overweight is because your cells have decided, because of all the damage that you were creating in them by your diet, that they're not going to listen to the pancreas anymore, and they're not going to respond to insulin, which is telling them to burn more sugar. You see, what the pancreas is doing is it's monitoring the sugar in your blood. And if you have too much sugar in your blood, there are physiological consequences, osmotic activity. It affects things. So what the insulin does is it makes the cells via the insulin receptor, the cells throughout your body, via the insulin receptor, they turn on the importation of sugar and they turn on the burning of that sugar, which means they're turning on free radical production if you don't need the sugar. Those free radicals damage your DNA and cause all the age-related illnesses, be it autoimmune diseases, cognitive dysfunction, Alzheimer's, bone deterioration, all of those things, cancers, they're all caused by free radicals.
Obesity, then? This would help obesity?
Of course it does. You take high doses of cannabis, you will lose weight, period.
Wow. There's so many people that want to lose weight, and all they got to do is burn that fat off
get high,
cannabis.
Eat proper diet. Stop eating shit all the time.
Wow.
And what's so interesting?
Perfect solution.
Well, and there are other nutraceuticals that turn on fat burning. For example, resveratrol, which is the active ingredient in grapes.
Yeah.
I take the equivalent of probably 500 glasses of wine a day in resveratrol. I'll
tell you what I'm having for breakfast. Got to put in there. This morning I had organic grapeseed paste that was made from the local vineyard that I'm living on. Oh,
That's
we had it with
all
Thai.
good stuff.
Oh my! It was so nice for breakfast. Lovely.
Yep.
I'll see if I can send you a pot. Because that's got that stuff in there.
That's in there.
Yeah, it's resveratrol that's in there.
That was discovered by what they call the French paradox. How come the French eat all this fatty food and they don't have heart disease like they do in America? It's because they eat a lot of olive oil, they eat a lot of grapes. All of those things turn on fat burning.
Right.
You
got fats that are good and fats that are bad. Fats that heal and fats that kill. I think that arrangement.
Fats that heal are the polyunsaturated fats. And the reason they heal is because they turn on fat burning. Most of the fat that is harming people, it doesn't come from the fat they eat. It comes from the sugar they eat. And the body makes fat out of the sugar because it doesn't want to burn it, because if it's going to burn it, it's going to kill itself. So it makes it into fat instead, and then the fat kills you. Because the fat is so inflammatory.
So when they're drinking these fizzy drinks, these Coca-Colas and things that are full of sugar, all they're doing is adding weight to themselves, isn't it? Which is going to kill them.
Not just adding weight, adding free radicals. They're killing them.
And the free radicals, yeah. Wow.
Let's look at a couple of examples. Let's go back to the diabetes, okay? Yep. You're eating a shitty diet. You're taking in too many carbohydrates. You're making too many free radicals. The insulin is telling the cells to eat it. The cells are making too many free radicals. The cells are saying, I don't want to eat anymore. They turn on fat burning. And when they turn on fat burning, they turn off the receptors that are telling the cells to take in the sugar. Yeah. This is what we call insulin-resistant diabetes. All it is hey, schmuck, you're killing me. Stop it. It's that easy. And when you take the high doses of cannabis, you go and you eat the cannabis oil, eat a couple of, eat it like you're trying to cure cancer. And I know people who've lost like 30 pounds a month just because they're on fat burning.
Well, it's time to wrap it up, gentlemen.
When you turn on, your body will change its desire for food. You will not I was always a cookie freak. I love cookies and candies, and I can't eat it anymore because of my inflammation. I turned on fat burning, and when you turn on fat burning, you no longer crave sugars.
Bob, we got to say goodnight. We've done an hour. It seemed like a minute.
Well, I hope this was useful. This is the best I have.
I reckon so. Look, thank you so much for coming on air with us. We'll send you a copy of this in the link. Dr. Bob, keep up your good work because so many people...
When will this be available online? Because this was a fairly comprehensive presentation. I want to make sure people get it.
In about 2 weeks, we'll make sure you get a link to it.
All right, cool.
Casper,
post it on my website. Post it on my Facebook.
We'll send you a direct link to it before we post it up. Okay?
Great, man. You be good. Thank you for all you're doing.
Love you, Dr. Bob. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Peace and love. Stay high.
Peace and love, brother. Look.
Say goodbye to trouble and strife.
Since 1990, over 9 million people have broken the rules and got arrested for pot. That's more than the population combined from Alaska, Montana, Wyoming, and even Vermont. Man, that sure seems like a lot. In 2005, over 750,000 American citizens got busted with weed. What burns holes in my tent is 86% were arrested for possession. But what I can't believe is one of those people was me. So what can we do about legalization but rally around and reform legislation that state our position and make it our mission? A change in the law is what we need. It's time we legalize weed. Chief Greenbud is spouting about prison overcrowding, using words like reform, rally, and change. Why should we do time for a victimless crime? Marijuana isn't evil, but it's taking the blame. Don't you think that it's time for a change? So what can we do about legalization but rally around and reform legislation that state our position and make it our mission? A change in the law is what we need. It's time we legalize weed. Let's make it our mission, state our position. Change in the law is what we need. It's time we legalize weed. Yeah, it's time we legalize weed.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.